Okay, we are going live.
Going live. Okay. Ready when you are.
So
Oh, we are live. Okay.
yeah. So how's it going, Mark?
Oh, it's going. I don't know, man. We're self isolating.
Yeah.
I've been retired for 2 years, so I've been training up for this,
Hmm.
and this is my time to shine. I don't go much of anywhere. We go to the store, we go get gas. I go to the hardwood supplier, and that's about all I ever do. So I'm golden. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean,
strange times indeed. But there are a lot of people that um, hope for something like this. I don't mean the circumstances, but I mean they want. There are people who just lived to stay in and not have to worry about anything or go anywhere or do anything. I understand money. I really do. But now we get to. We have an excuse. So,
yeah, there's a lot of things that have. So I'm typically, or have become, or always was in a way, but more so now, that person that's kind of like doesn't necessarily mind. Like I can interact with people quite well, no problem. But
mhm,
at the same time, I can very much separate myself
mhm.
for extreme amounts of time,
Yep.
and time can quickly go by with me not
Mhm.
interacting.
Yeah.
And so in a strange way, I can, in a strange way, but everybody needs some form of interaction. I mean, because in reality, even things such as this, let's say
Uh-huh.
you and I uh sharing, I mean, human beings are social animals, even the most hermit,
Mhm.
I would think, because that would be already pathological. So it's not like, but I've gotten to the point where I guess I just want to interact with, and I guess everybody does, with the people you want to interact with. I don't want to
Sure.
interact with the people that, like, it's, what a waste of time. And you might say, oh, for fairness, oh, because I have to give people a chance and this and that and all that stuff. When you're taught, when your kid is great, because it shows balance and being reasonable. But in reality, time is too short. Why have to spend it with a jerkwad that you don't like? And
Eh,
you may be wrong, you might be the jerkwad, but
mhm.
hey, it's better not to be around the one. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that opens up a neat concept because when you stop and think about it, um, I know you and I talk about the current technology and just the ability to get in on a hangout and just sit and BS with people.
Yeah.
And early on, one of our first episodes, I refer to this as basically we're living the Jetsons, in that we're sitting there looking at one another through, for all intents and purposes, a TV monitor and speaking and hearing and just conversing. Just everything is great, just like they did back in that cartoon in the 1960s.
You're right.
But it's created a new form of hermit in that we don't want to go out and yak with the people around us. We don't want to go out and interact with our neighbors or meet our buddies down to wherever and go do whatever. We'd rather sit in our comfortable homes and chat with people online who are, well, you're in Florida, I'm in Oregon. There is no place in the middle where we could meet that wouldn't require reservations. So it's created a new kind of hermit that
Yeah.
I don't go out of the house, but I still interact with my friends all the time.
Yeah, but you know what though, and which, see, and that's the funny thing. A lot of people, I see. There's two things, and I don't want to digress into the digression that I was thinking of digressing from what you were saying and then returning.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's funny that you and I, for instance, and all
Mhm.
the people that we have, as
Yeah.
friends, would never, like, let's say there's people with extremely similar interests, like you and I on certain categories or topics, we
Mhm.
would never have met anyhow, and this show would not have been possible. A lot of
Mhm.
the things that we've done, the world would be a different place without interaction amongst us people that know each other.
Sure.
um through these devices or through the assistance of these devices.
Right.
Otherwise, we'd have to pick and choose from our area.
Mhm.
So in a way, it is more hermit, and in a way, it's broadened the reach of like-minded people, because that, make no mistake, and I'm not saying this to you, Mark, I'm saying this to, or I'm just out like at large.
Mhm.
Make no, like, this is like a statement, like, ask not what you're, not really, I'm bull crapping, by the way, so anybody
Mhm.
that hears that might think to take that serious from, I'm just joking. But
Mhm.
make no mistake, ask not what this country can do for you. No, make no mistake, I forgot what I was going to say originally.
See, you flushed while the train was standing in the station. You're not supposed to do that. That's how you get derailed. But yeah, I do kind of get what you mean. But we have exchanged those devices for communication. I mean, for I mean interaction personally. Remember when we were kids, we would look for the yard that had all the bicycles in it because that's where we knew all of our friends were. And we would go out looking for our friends and go knock on doors and, oh, is Jimmy here? Yeah, he's here. Come on in, and off we
Mhm.
go, do whatever. Well, we're still doing that now. It's just that we're not leaving the house to do it. We don't have to go hunt for
You're right.
bicycles in the front yard.
You're so
You know,
right.
I mean, we would get together 6, 7, 8 friends and play a game,
Hmm.
in the den or in the family room or whatever. Well, now they're just playing it online, you know.
You're so
So
right.
we haven't gotten rid of that dynamic. It's just we don't leave the house to do it. And that comes with its own problems and circumstances. But the broader point is we're still social creatures. We're just not outdoors doing it, much to our detriment in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, but there's also, we don't know, or at least I don't know, because see, we don't see, we have a certain age that we're at, and we're
Mhm.
at a certain part of, because we don't know that kids, I mean, I guess we do to a certain extent, but we don't know what amount of kids actually do hop on their bikes and are, out the door and down the road with their buddies and, hey, come on, let's, we
Yeah.
don't know, but it appears like most kids have gone virtual. So, but what do I know? Like, I tend to believe what you're saying, but I think that we're also, look, I think that we're a product of our age
Mm.
in many respects, and we're kind of in a time warp in many, because I've been noticing that the older I get, the more and more I realize that I'm quite distant from that fellow, and at the same, I'm quite distant from that kid in so many ways.
Right.
Just the fact that, things that, like, I do not, come to the conclusions and beliefs that I've come to at my age on a host of topics, at least in my case, just because random. I have thought certain, not that I'm a brainiac, not that,
Well,
but the point is that I've evolved into this category where we can't judge, like, we were talking that one time about what you call, like, the magic pencil, like the 90s kids, we have the magic pencil, and this is like
yeah.
the icon of the, but to them, their knowledge, their window of their experience is that, and but ours has a different length of time, and it's just,
Yeah.
I don't want to go relative, but in certain situations things are relative.
Well, they are relative, and there's no getting away from it. There's no avoiding that because
Yeah.
what you have the advantage now. You said you are no longer that person that person back there. You've distanced yourself and you've evolved. Well, you've got 40 years of experience behind you now. So
44.98 or
well, but
99.
what I was getting at was you have 40 years of experience and cynicism built up since you were that wide-eyed kid
Yeah.
looking at the world going, squirrel. We
Yes.
still go squirrel. It's just now we think, it's nothing but a rat that's over here to make a nest up in the attic, and I got to figure out a way to keep him out. Where
You know,
before you'd have chased him all over the yard, laughing the whole time.
you are so right, dude. And that leads me to think of something else also, that we might be able to touch on at some point or whatever. But there was a magic in discovering certain things for the first time.
Uh-huh.
Let's not get too graphic about it, but there was a magic about, I mean, let me tell you something, my friend. Let
Mhm.
me tell you something. There was a magic about discovering certain things. And it can range from, see, I love the, I love the,
The worried look on my face. Yeah. I'm like, where the heck is this boy
no,
going now?
no, you're not, no, you're not thinking where the heck. You're thinking
No,
in the range.
we've seen what happens when he flushes while it's standing in the station. What's the switchman doing 10 miles up the track?
No, but there's a window of possibilities here. No,
Yeah, and that sucker's wide open.
okay, I'm just gonna give you the window. The first time, for instance, the first time that you were in close proximity to the other gender, boy, that sounds so like clean and like laboratory in front of a
And
girl.
pretty vague too, because you figure that was day one, my mother, but I know what you're talking about.
Well, I'm talking about,
Yeah,
like she
but
comes up and she plants one on your that first, let's say, kiss, or
uh
that first time you discover, or that I discovered comic books. And
yeah,
see, for some people that might not be a big deal, but for me, when I looked at it and I opened the pages and saw these drawings with words on it, that there was a story involved in it, the
uh
excitement of taking one home from the 7-Eleven and jumping on the bed and starting to, like, your mind opened a window of, oh my goodness, there's a story that I can control by
mhm.
reading and stopping, as opposed to a TV show that it just goes and just
Yeah,
little, or the first time that whatever, just these first time, those were, well, you can't repeat that ever again. That
no,
feeling.
no, you can't. You can't really rediscover something once you've done it,
Mm-hmm.
but but you can control the cynicism that comes along with it to a certain point. I'm a firm believer that with experience comes cynicism, and it's something that I work on all the time. I really try to avoid being cynical, but let's look at the case of when you first got your driver's license. Do you remember the first time you were able to go get in the car and drive somewhere by yourself without somebody else in that vehicle with you, and the sense of freedom you had?
I don't remember the first time. I just remember the first epoch.
You know,
It's a funny thing.
the first time you were able to actually, I want to go to the store, run out, get in the car and drive to the store yourself without asking somebody for a ride, without having to have, Dad, I want to go to the store, that kind of thing. Just being able, the independence and the freedom that was there.
Yeah.
And now that sense of independence and freedom is there. Now it's, I don't want to go to the store. Driving is just something you have to do in order to do something else. There's no excitement for the act anymore, at least not for me. Whereas my first, oh God, year and a half of being able to drive with a license in my own car, that's all I wanted to do, because it was new and exciting, and the places I could go, because I wasn't reliant on somebody else to take me. I went places just to see what they were. That, we always drove from A to B down this road. I want to see what's down this other road here in the middle. So let's make a left and go see what's going on down there. What have I been missing that's over there? Just that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But age and cynicism has settled in, along with 40 years of driving for me now. And it's to the point to where I don't want to go down that road. I want to go home.
Yeah.
Okay. They got trees just like we got. So, I'm just going to go home.
When you in the past had passed by, either on bike or as a kid, and you'd see the iconic grumpy old man, let's say,
Uh-huh.
or grumpy old lady, you'd say, oh well,
Yeah.
come on. See, and one would think, oh well, come on, it can't be that bad. And maybe it can't be that bad, maybe it can, but um with lack of understanding of a person being in another person's shoes, or another person's timeline, or another person's choose your
Uh-huh.
poison, um their reaction to the world around them there's a reason for it. And sometimes life is so overwhelming that it just crushes every single aspect of a person's life and dreams and whatnot. And one starts to understand certain things. I would hope most people do, and I believe they do at some point in time, that, hey, okay, you're the way you are because possibly all these things could, and so one becomes also a little bit more understanding towards others, but that doesn't mean that you want to kick it on the stoop with Mr. Grumpy and stuff,
Sure. I mean, we are, it's been said many, many times, and I do believe it. We're all products of our environment, but there's good and bad that comes along with it. And the older you get, the more experience factors into it as well. I mean, speaking as a guy from the West Coast who grew up with the mental image of Miami and Miami Beach being glamorous. That's where the beautiful people went. That's where the rich and the ritzy went. And, it was nothing but sun and fun and glamorous life. And for me to talk to a person who has lived there all of their life, who maybe didn't grow up with that mental image of what Miami is, it's you have a different attitude and idea of what it is based on your experience.
Yeah.
That I don't have.
Yeah.
Because like I remember watching the Jackie Gleason show live from Miami, and it was always looked like, dang, that would be so cool to be there. But then again, I never lived there and had to go find a job and had to find a place to stay and deal with traffic driving there every day, this, that, and the other. So what I'm getting at is our perceptions of another person's experience can be clouded by other perceptions that we picked up from other places.
Right.
So,
Oh yeah, it's all the scope of what we take into our minds, but it could be very different, and one has to be, have wiggle room to, when something is presented that's not as it was painted for you or as you viewed it, and have the leeway to consume that stuff. And I guess it also, I've never understood. I think I've never understood like certain limitations. It's always been an interesting thing. I'll give you when the shoe's on the other foot.
Okay.
Of what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Before I say it and cause a car jam, down the highway. One time, I was at a dog park, and I think it was Vigo. I believe it was Vigo, and this was like in 2011 or 2000. And I'm sitting there. There was only one other person there, and this one dude, and he was letting it's a fenced-in area, and the dog was walking around. My dog was walking around and stuff, and I was sitting at the bench, and he's sitting at the bench and stuff, and we start up a conversation, and so I asked him, "Oh, so what do you do?" And he said, "Well, I work for this technical, this, and that, and then the computing, this and that, and we monitor this, that." And he's saying all these things, and I'm just listening to it, and the words are going over my head. Like, it doesn't sound like a job to me. It sounds like some sort of intergalactic whatever. And I told him, "Dude, what the heck does that mean?" Like the way he explained it to me wasn't on a human, like, normal level, and maybe he was being as transparent as possible, but it went totally over my head.
Yeah.
What the heck his job? Like, I left that scenario without knowing in reality what the heck the guy did.
You still don't even know what he did. Yeah, I'm with you. If you can't describe your job in 3 words, you need to work on your vocabulary.
Yeah. I mean, because honestly, it's like, well, it was so, and I was like, when he said that, I didn't have anything other than that to reply to, because it's just simply, it's so convoluted that, and so I was thinking that us humans, there is a level of perception, understanding, that where we can have a common ground of, like, knowledge coming in. We may not know all the details and whatnot, and we're all at different levels, I guess, of interest and all sorts of, and knowledge base and
Sure.
whatnot. But I mean, I would think so. Whereas I would not know the first thing about, astronaut, mechanics, or whatever, or brain surgery 101, how to, connect neurotransmitters. But there is a common language that we can use to get there and stuff. And I've always been curious of interactions and stuff. And when it comes to things that I like philosophy and this and that, which it's not like my strong suit. It's just that I like it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I don't mind conversing, even though it's uncharted territory and this and that. Sure. Most people, there's subjects that most people do not that most people, but at least the people that I run across, it's like, if they don't partake in the enjoyment of it, they're told, and we talked about this, they will quickly get up and go, let's say.
Yeah.
They're not interested in certain. Yeah. And I find that the most fundamental thing for me, and that's the problem for me in life, is ethics. Not that I'm, let's say, Mr. Ethics, but the search for ethics. And things of that nature, philosophical, psychological, these things, they fascinate me, because I don't like contradictions. I don't like, you know what I'm saying? Like someone that's, these are my rules for me, but for you, I'm going to add different rules for you. Hypocrisy and stuff like that. There's something internal that's always taken me away from, and people will blatantly be hypocritical and inconsistent in arguments and in all sorts of things. And by the way, that goes for me as well. However, I will actually acknowledge, because I think that it's a loss for myself if I'm being that. I'm human. We're all human, and we all commit these things. But if it's pointed out in me, I'll either try to reason it and figure out, how, but I won't just take it, as set. I won't just overcome the objection by dominating, the conversation or ignoring it. Yeah, that wasn't consistent, but it doesn't matter. I won. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Like, that's one of my pet peeves. I cannot stand in inconsistencies in arguments, but whatever.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this about that then. How about an evolving opinion? My opinion is X. Your opinion is Y. But as we discuss, okay, maybe I'm moving closer to Y. Or maybe I'm moving closer down towards R or O, as I think something through and start researching a little bit more and see maybe, maybe you've convinced me a little bit here.
Of course.
I don't see that as hypocrisy. I see that as becoming more informed and possibly re-examining your position.
Yes, I agree with you. You can't always be like out the gates, this is my, and that's it, but as long as you can reason why, if you can reason why you've evolved on something and say, well, the reason I've evolved on this question or this concept, because then truth, I don't know who said it, but somebody said it, the unexamined life is not worth living. And if you take that just as said, and you don't, so if somebody comes up to a person and says, listen, the unexamined life is not worth living. If somebody says that to somebody, a lot of people are going to say, oh, that's stupid, or whatever. A lot of people would say, because they're not going to consider what that means. They're not going to process what that means. Not that everybody's going to do it, but there's going to be a contingency of people that won't allow that to sink in for half a second. And what a person and what that saying is doing is saying, hey, think about this for a second. What does that mean? Or what does that mean to you? People don't take the time to know why they know and believe what they believe and be able to express it to other people. They just believe a certain thing. It's kind of barbaric. It's kind of savage. I believe this because that's it. But why? Oh, I don't have time to talk about that. And so, okay, fine, that's fine. But there's no definition.
I don't even think it goes that far, to be honest with you. I think you see a lot of peer pressure, you see a lot of herd mentality, and a lot of wanting to be hip and cool. And I do see some deep thought going into some of this, and just, difference in opinion. And that's great. It's all well and good. But, I don't know. So long as there's civility involved in it, then I think it's okay. Just the automatic gainsay of anything that somebody has to say. If you're in the middle of a discussion about something like that, and just taking an opposing position because you have some sort of a preformed idea about the person you're talking with. I don't like this person's philosophy in life, or I don't like this person's ideology. Therefore, whatever that person says, I have to be against it because I'm against that ideology.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's even more ridiculous than any other ideology that could be out there. Just about any other ideology that could be out there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always exceptions, but I don't know. I hypocritical people and attention-seeking people, I think, are the ones that bother me the most. The folks who will publicly announce or say something just for a shock value or just to get attention are the first ones I ignore. It's just like you failed with me. I'm gone. Goodbye. I ain't got time for that. Life is too short to be filled with angst and constantly rubbing your hands and be fearful of what someone else is doing, whether it affects you or not, especially when there's no possible way it could affect you. To me, it's just, you're just seeking attention, and that's all. And I just don't have time for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I wasn't getting the gist of what you were saying or not, but just as you were talking, that's what was coming to my mind. It's just pretentiousness, attention seeking, and outright hypocrisy. I got no time for you.
Yeah. And I do want to say that that's, for me, that's within the context of that we all can apply that as human beings to ourselves. Anything that another human being is capable of within the realm of possibility, one is capable of, I have found. Mm-hmm. Not that it is a preferred, a certain action by someone is a preferred, action or course to take in your personal existence, but anything a human is capable of, we are capable of, within the range of emotion and thought processes and stuff, because we're kind of all like the species, right? And we share abilities, right? Not just the base abilities, but all down the list. Sure. And so we all have inconsistencies. At least I do, and I believe many people. I would be as bold to say that we're all inconsistent, because although we are rational, human beings are, we're also irrational. We're also like crowd, what you call herds.
Herd mentality or mob mentality. Yeah. Well, because nobody is perfect. And if you really think you are, go walk on water and then I'll believe you.
One time there was, I'll give you this bit. And when one goes down a certain historical or a certain thing, there's a lot of ideas that come to mind. But like you said earlier, being in Oregon and thinking of Miami, and vice versa for that matter, one has a limited scope or their vantage point from the information they've gathered. But one time, so it's all true for everybody, I think. So I'll just say this: during, I think it was the 1990s, there was this kid called Elian Gonzalez.
Yeah, and
Elian had gotten on a raft with his mom or a boat or something like that, and sailed, the Caribbean, the ocean, the Straits of Florida Straits, in order to exit said country, Cuba, and search for the key word that Cubans always use is search for freedom. That's like the primal, like when you ever hear freedom, exit. So in their existence, the idea of leaving where they're at and to America or United States, let's say, because it's all America, but United States, let's say, is the search for freedom, and they don't have that over there. Well, at some point, the presidency at that time, they took him from his house. His mom had passed away in the ocean and drowned. He was here with family, perfectly well, people that had been here for 40 years plus and whatever, and were taking care of the kid. Well, the Cuban government decided to claim him through his father, which had abandoned him anyhow as a kid. And all of a sudden, the father wanted him back. And it became a polarizing situation.
Yep.
And the community here, because of its anti, oppressive stance in this particular case with Cuba, I mean, people lived, atrocious occurrences, and they were now here and American and with children and children of children from that situation. And once the I guess it was, what was her name, the same lady that did the Waco,
Janet Reno.
Janet Reno had agents come in to bust into their house here in Little Havana, and they actually took a picture of the closet door being torn open, and Elian's face was like this. And you had guys with guns, pointed at him and his like aunt or something as they were hurt, curled up.
Yep.
And they took him to extradite and rejoin with his loving, quote unquote, loving father that had not seen him since whenever, because he abandoned the wife. But what the government of Cuba did was they used that father for a political purpose. And to understand it, Miami's a weird place because you have people here in Miami that are the descendants of, and very much themselves, of a different style of government where basically, confiscation of things occurred. And those things include your actual property. So if you had a little store, it held true that they would take it. Just like if you had a big business or a corporation, they would take it. Just the same as if you were an American company with investors and so on, they took it all, and without recompense. So it's not like they said, get out, but we'll pay you. It was like, get out.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, so during that time here with that Elion thing, which I think was either the 80s or the 90s, probably.
It was, I want to say it was in the 1990s.
Well, everybody poured out as a demonstration onto the streets. From down here where I'm at the extreme of, let's say, Miami, because if you keep going, it becomes the woods, let's say, Everglades, let's say, all the way from here, all the way downtown. So stretching across any viable concrete, because what another thing is that the population of Cuban descendants, etc., in Miami is an explosion everywhere. I mean, literally, you could be talking English to a person, and all you know is that you're both from Miami, but you don't know that they're Cuban, let's say, or of Cuban descendant, but they are, let's say. It's to that point. Judges, police, just everywhere. It's everywhere. And so it became apparent when everybody poured into the streets to demonstrate. Mind you, not a person was frickin' choked, or a barricade was nothing. But people did pour into the streets to the point where Miami stopped. Right. And I, living here, walked 5 blocks down to Flagler Street see the thing and to also put my vote in that no, they shouldn't have done that.
Right.
And when I walked there, it was an ocean of human beings. Every non-Cuban or Cuban descent, and forgive me, not every, because not only did Cubans pour into the streets, but Nicaraguans poured into the streets.
Right.
Puerto Ricans, the contingency of Puerto Ricans poured into the streets. Americans of non-Hispanic origins also poured it, but not as much in those
Right.
contingencies. Because after 50 years of people marry into each other and all sorts of things happen.
Sure.
And there's also a love that occurs beyond, particular groups and what, as it
Sure.
happens in every
People
major
are people, man. Yeah, people are people.
right. But there was then, during that, voices popping up after that, where the complaining was massive, and the ire towards the community, which was the majority, frankly. The Cuban community is the majority.
Right.
Here. And the ire of the people that weren't the majority was seen in news clips where you would hear people say, oh, well, it was barbaric. It was barbaric that they all stopped traffic, this and that. And how dare they? And then the trucks couldn't pass, and ambulances. And in fact, they have a point. Ambulances could nothing. Yeah. But the problem is that everybody was in the streets. Like Miami was in the streets, literally. The houses poured out, and everybody. And then you did have a contingency of people, but it was like from Miami to extreme west over here, full everywhere. That's how much the sentiment was, and the ideal of stripping a little boy from his family after he's lost his mom, this and that. But there was a contingency of people that had other bones to pick, and were tired of the dominant sort of like cultural thing of the Cuban, and their voices started to come out and be heard. And so, I guess long story short, they did not partake because they had other ideas of what should and must be, and they had problems, and their voices were no longer viable in the greater Miami area because they didn't have the numbers, let's say, anymore. And so whatever their complaints, that had long since been pushed to the back. And yeah, I guess you have to feel it and know it, and a lot of people can't put themselves in other people's shoes, but it goes both ways, I guess.
True. We were on the West Coast when that happened. That either happened in late 1999 or early 2000, by the way.
Okay.
Depending, there's two different dates that I'm seeing here and looking for it. And I found that picture, by the way. I'll put it over on the Trampled Underfoot Facebook page. Go to Facebook, look for Trampled Underfoot podcast. That's where that picture will be. And the photographer got a Pulitzer Prize for that photo, by the way. I was on the West Coast when that happened, and I have to say there was nobody that I ever spoke with, nobody I ever heard, in the public forum that supported the decision to take that boy away from his family and send him back to Cuba. Nobody. And I mean, folks who had never been to Miami, the overwhelming majority of them, and had absolutely nothing to do with the case, but everybody was dead set against them doing this because there was no reason for it. Zero. And I don't even remember the political purpose in doing it. So the kid had support nationwide is what I'm getting at.
Well, a lot of people would go and say, and when I mean a lot of people, it was a very small contingency that said he should be with his dad, and it's a very compelling argument. plain and
It
simple.
is, but
On that level, he should be with his dad. That's kind of like a reasonable, if you think of it just that.
it
But
is. It is, but if it was important for him to be with his dad, he should have been with his dad all the time.
mhm.
I mean, that's just me as a dad saying that. He abandoned that child. If he cared that much, he wouldn't have done that, you know, regardless of what was going on between he and his wife. If he thought that child was important, he would have been in that child's life.
But playing devil's advocate, the United States was in a precarious situation because internationally, regardless, um, if a country, and by the way, this isn't even a that isn't even a I mean, it's a country, but it's not even run as a country. It's run like a farm. And what it is that it's the extreme case scenario of where you see a government controlling the flock like
Mhm.
cattle. So it's all make it up as you go. You know what I'm saying? It's
I
all
do,
the leaders.
but
Okay, and today we're gonna shift all these people over here. It's just like they're cattle.
right.
And but internationally, if you and by the way, I disagree with the outcome, but I'm saying that if you put yourself in in the shoes of the community at large for whatever world community and ramifications and whatnot, um, a child, the closest next of kin is always going to be the parents, and then it digresses. And if they're claiming it from a country that has a hostility towards another country and all these things, they use that as leverage so they can sort of use the propaganda
True,
of the kid.
true. And that's exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it was. This was not the government. The child was not out on the streets. He wasn't sleeping under a bridge. He was living with relatives. Okay. The kid's father abandoned him in Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
He abdicated all parental rights right then and there, as far as I'm concerned. The minute you abandon it, you walk away from it, it's no longer yours. And a child is the number one example of that. This is just my opinion. I could be wrong. What I'm getting at is they had no compelling reason to do so. He wasn't being held against his will. He was with his aunt and uncle. He loved his aunt and uncle. He was happy. The Cuban regime used him as a bargaining tool. And I think that our leadership at the time was wrong in acquiescing to their demands. It's just like, well, he's here. If you want to come here and go to court, you're welcome to. Here's the address where you need to file the lawsuit.
What happens is also on another level, or I could assume, let's
Mm-hmm.
say you have an American in another country
Mm-hmm.
and something like that occurs, they could turn the tables on. In other words, the country has implications, and that's no excuse, but maybe it is. I'm just saying that they placated, and
Well, and that's why I put some limitations on that, and I qualified certain things. He was not being held against his will. He was living with his aunt and uncle. He loved his aunt and uncle. He was happy there. He wanted to stay there.
yeah.
That's why they had to go in there with firearms and remove him by force.
Oh yeah, yeah, they needed to
You
do
know,
that.
he did not want to go. His opinion should have held sway. He was not being held against his will. Now, you got some tin horn dictator who takes 4 Americans and puts them in a hotel room and locks the door and says, no, they're going to stay here with us. That's completely different. They're being held against their will. He was not being held against his will. That, to me, is the major force of it. He didn't even know his dad. He didn't even know him. So you're going to take a kid away from 2 people that he knows and loves and send him back to a repressive regime to live with somebody he doesn't know. Yeah, that's the kind of government I want. But, I don't want to get into that.
Now, currently, with the outbreak or plague or
Pandemic.
pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
um, I've been watching some videos. There's some people that do just like we do vlogs here. Well, over there they do vlogs as well, and but they have to buy like little time cards in order to connect to the internet. They're on a different method because they have to have limited control, whatever the case is with them. And there's people that do young kids that do vlogs, video vlogs, and post them to YouTube. And there's this one guy that does man on the street, sort of asking the Cuban populace questions to see what their thoughts are. And it's like they are totally disconnected from the world around them. One of the last videos that the kid did, and it's very interesting because Miami actually supports the kid, companies here, and they'll pay him to, and he'll, I guess, edit. I'm assuming that he'll edit it in his house. He's sent like money for internet and money in order for him to do what he does, because it's revealing people's day-to-day over there and their ideas and thoughts, and people here in Miami are interested in unmasking the things as if it needs unmasking any further, but apparently it does. And they'll send, and then he'll advertise Miami companies on his little thing, and then people in Miami watch it, and it's just all that. Well, he did one where they had not done anything for the pandemic, and he's showing people on the streets of Havana, long lines, people crunched up against each other, tourists from around the world. I mean, it's all, and then you have over here us, where we're taking our space, and it's the difference between a failed system and not a failed system. Or a parent.
It's just one more example. I mean, it's failed everywhere it's been tried. But everybody gets this idea in their head of, well, it's just the wrong people have tried it. Really? Where are you going to find these angels? I don't even trust me.
Well, yeah. Oh, well, the thing is that these people are in close contact with each other, and the spread of what we the things that we're dealing with. It's quite a different thing to be in a place where you have to stand in line to purchase food, and with limited funds, towards here where we have the ability to we're inconvenienced big time, but within our big time inconvenience, we still have access to barbaric amounts. I mean, the fact that I went to the store and there was no ground beef, but they had like some like rib and like some sort of chops, pork chops, and they still had other, but it was kind of like not full, the meat section. And I was like, this is a disgrace. I mean, they don't have all. I'm used to going in and seeing it full of the red meat, like full package on top, full, and you walk up, and if you think about it, and you could look to your left and right, and it's like full of meat, and then you go to the canned foods, and they don't have that.
Nope. They don't have any of that. And in fact, the inconvenience that we're feeling right now is everyday life to them, mainly because they just don't have access to it. We're complaining because our normal convenience foods aren't there. I mean, talk to Mike Lawling. He was standing in a checkout line, and the people behind him were asking a woman in line how to cook chicken. It's just a package of chicken breasts from the meat department. It wasn't in a package. It didn't have instructions printed on the label. They had no clue. How do you cook this? There's no instructions. Do I put it in the oven? Do I put it in the microwave? Do I put it in a skillet on the stove? How do you cook this? I've never done it before.
Yeah.
So number one, this needs to end that okay boomer crap, because boomers are going to make sure, we're being fed. We can feed ourselves without the microwave, guys. So, the other is it's kind of our fault for letting that go, letting it get to that point, to begin with. But this forced, I wouldn't say forced because it's not force, But this enforced self segregation, I guess you'd call it, self quarantine, self isolation, has made me start doing a few things that I haven't done in a while. I've watched more TV and paid more attention to TV more in the last week and a half, I guess,
Yeah.
than I ever have before. And there's a few things that I'm noticing that are just weird to me, and a couple of them that are very interesting. But before I get into that, were you finished with what you wanted to say about Elian Gonzalez and that
Yeah.
situation?
Yeah. I don't know. I know that I had a reason for saying it. All interesting things were said, but there was a reason that tied into what we were talking about before, but I don't remember it. In fact,
Oh,
I
okay.
remember a lot of things. So,
Okay. Well, it's your edit. So if we remember, go ahead and jump in and you can skip edit, Excuse me. I didn't hit the mute button fast enough.
that's
But
fine.
one of these things that I've noticed that was interesting, I've been talking about it. There's a few comedians that have been talking about it for about the last 15 to 20 years. And that is, you know how on all the sitcoms, all the stand-up comedy routines and everything, the male figurehead of the family has always been the idiot. He's always been the dunce. He's the guy that can't do anything right. If he tries to do anything, he messes it up somehow, and it's the source of all the comedy. Well, am I the only one who has noticed that that is starting to go away? It's getting less and less about dad's an idiot, dad's a bumbler. I'll give you an example. I saw an insurance commercial the other day, an insurance commercial, and I don't remember if it was life, home, auto, whatever. Dad wasn't the idiot. Mom was. Mom was the idiot. Dad wasn't treating her like an idiot. The kid was. We've made that shift now from dad being the bumbler who can't do it right to the parents. Mom and dad are both the idiots. And the kid has all the intelligence. The kid has all the answers. The kid has all the smarts.
Right.
Am I the only one that's starting to notice this becoming more and more prevalent here, especially in advertising right off the bat? But
Well, for those of us, in the somewhat no,
Mhm.
or no, or whatever degree of no, I don't know if it's safe to say, and that you would, or it's safe that you would agree, but in the short life that I've experienced on this earth, TV, movies, radio, media, print media, media in general is there inputting cultural, political, economic, you name it, concepts that the writers and companies and individuals and funders are injecting into that, so the public at large is cattled left, right, and whatnot. To a degree, they try to influence society, and kids are highly susceptible to what they watch, like those shows. And I remember in the 80s and 90s that the dad was the bumbler. But here's the thing: anybody with any type of, and it's a hard thing, but anybody with any, because what it did for me, that kind of thing, watching that, is that I understood that these people are actors, and
right,
that doesn't apply into real life. But a lot of people see that and inform themselves that that's how society runs, and that's how dads are, and that's how, and those people are the people that these groups with money and funds and agendas are after, because they know there's
right.
contingency of Americans, let's say, that
Hmm.
whatever you feed them on the greater scale, they're not going to buy it. But internally, they will be pushed because society at large will accept it. So we kind of like, we're like little pebbles down a stream. And even though we know we're being pushed along with the tides, and we tend to accept certain levels of what's fed to us on how things should be run, but we're kind of like possible rebels. So I don't know, whatever. I laid that out just,
But there's another factor. I agree with what you're saying, but there's another factor involved, and that is relatability. And that's a big word nowadays. Because, all right, go back to, before I was born, Dad was seen as the wise one of the family. I mean, you had Father Knows Best and Leave It to Beaver and all those old shows back then where Dad was the strong person of the family. He was the breadwinner. He was the one who went and worked all day while Mom stayed home, took care of the house and the kids. And when he come home, everybody just worshiped Daddy. He had all the wisdom. He had all the answers, and everything he ever did was perfect. Folks couldn't relate to that. That was supposed to be some pie in the sky ideal that was set way up here. Then it kind of transferred, but it went too far in the other direction. Just my opinion. It went from Dad being a normal guy to Dad being a total failure. He was a dunce. He was an idiot. How the heck is this guy even employed, let alone raking in the cash he's raking in to be able to afford this house or this apartment or whatever? How did this guy survive? They never addressed the fact that, look, woman, you're the one that married him. Okay. You should set your sights higher if he's really that bad. But now it's going the other direction. Instead of the pendulum swinging up to where Dad is the bright guy again, Dad stayed at the bottom. Now Mom is coming down the hill. Because when Dad was the strong one, the perfect husband, father, and citizen, nobody could relate to that. So they had to bring Dad down some to make him more relatable. Then it became a cliche. It became a trope, a shtick. Dad had to be the idiot. Mom was the strong one. She was the smart one. She had all the answers. And at the end of the show, well, John, see, I told you. Wah, wah, wah. And that was it, Well, now they're bringing Mom down. Mom's on her way down too. And the kids are the ones who are being shown as the intelligent ones. The kids have all the answers. There's a commercial on TV right now where Mom is saying, remind me to make an appointment for the vet to get the dog into the vet. And the kid's sitting there, okay, Mom. And all of a sudden she says, done. I made the appointment for you on my app here on my tablet or phone or whatever it was she had in her hand. You can do that. They're bringing Mom down too. I don't know how relatable that is. Time will tell. And if this fails, if there's a backlash, we'll see it. But I don't see it happening yet. I just thought it was one of those interesting things that I was just starting to pay attention to and just starting to notice.
I mean, So yes, so I've not noticed that, but then again, I'm not consuming TV or, but I think that the game has always been to have consumers, create consumer bases across, certain ideologies. That's always been the game, the powers that be. I mean, that's why there's billboards and so on and so forth. But I believe that there's a more insidious purpose, end goal, and it's always to maintain people within little cubicles of reality. Whether it's because it's in the design or because it's just better for economically, for the powers that be, whatever the case. Throughout history, I mean, Rome, Colosseum, the people, and then you have these people that oversee the people and stuff.
Right.
I've currently come to the conclusion it's all bull crap. And it's all I've come to the conclusion that everything, I don't care if they have a tie and suit and they have titles, if they're a king or a queen. I've come to the conclusion that if you think about it, everybody that's ever lived, I'm just going to lay it out. Everybody that's ever lived has died.
Well, sure.
I read a month ago, I found the Escagedo from the 1600s, where he, in a group of people from the village in Spain, a guy came for collection of taxes, and they came with a stick, and they first went to the first store. The guy wouldn't pay, and they whacked with a stick the guy, and then he went to another place and he whacked with the stick another guy, and I think then he came to another guy that was the Escagedo, and he whacked the Escagedo with a stick back in the 1600s. And it's a document with old writing, and you can see Escagedo in various places. They went to the courts, and in Spain and everywhere, they would sit and they'd write testimonies, and it was like page after page in that weird old style. And he came to me, well, I can't read the Spanish very well, particularly the old school, so I'm not sure if it was the Escagedo that was doing the whipping, or if it was the Escagedo that was whipped. So I don't know the dynamics of that, right. But what I do know is that they were coming by, and an act occurred where violence was imposed. And all those people are dead.
Yeah.
The guy that was the rich guy, the guy that was the poor guy, the guy that was the middle guy, the farm guy, the animals, the cattle, the grass that was growing, gone. Then the next generation came along, they grew up, they fed the system in the same way, and they croaked. And then the next bit, until you reach here current times, as all these things are happening in a cyclical way, and this is just my perception, it's all the same crap. They wake up, they feed, they poop, they make some moves in the world. Doesn't matter whether you're Hemingway or whatchamacallit, or Pepito, the peanut, seller across the street, or the shoe shine guy, or the whatever. All these things and the conflicts, and it's all okay. I see it as we're all entertaining ourselves with some bullcrap Monopoly game on one level and entertainment, while we're waiting for the machine, the meat grinder, like in what do you call it? The wall, where they fall into the meat grinder, and then it comes out grinded. That's really what's in a certain way. That's what's happening, because what is all throughout the seasons of life, generation after generation, we make advances. That is true, and we live better, because we're living way better than we've touched on this. But at the end of the day, so what I'm trying to get at is that these people that are incredibly abusive nowadays, they keep a tradition of being incredibly abusive or dictatorial or this or that. But at the end of the day, these asshats, they're going through the grinder anyhow. And the people. So what I'm trying to say is that instead, my attitude towards life is so intense to dominate another human being. I'm so intense to overtake. I want to be the one that tells you how to live I want to be all that stuff. They're all going to frickin' croak anyhow. So what? It's a waste of time. Sure, they get to live high and mighty, but at the expense of the herd of it. No, they don't learn anything. They're like frickin' soulless. So this whole existence is a continuation of the same damn thing, dude, as far as I can see. What do you think about that? I don't know if
well, to be honest, I've been saying the same thing since I heard Jim Morrison say it. Nobody here gets out alive. I'm just trying to make my life more interesting.
No, but
that's it.
The point of the cyclicalness of it, and
true, it's true,
like wanting to dominate. The idea of the domination, and sure, they're gaining.
Okay,
but they're not getting the concept that they're gonna they're on a.
You're overthinking it, because they haven't thought it that far. You're overthinking it. You're projecting. You're projecting onto them. They never think past themselves. That's the big thing. I
don't think I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm overthinking.
Maybe you're overthinking the person. Then is what I'm getting at. Because there are people who still firmly believe the old cliche: "He who dies with the most toys wins." Well, you know what, cousin? You're still dead. And it's not like you're going to get up out of the grave, walk over and shake something in my face, because that's not how it works. Don't really much care. I really don't. You know, I'm just here to live the best life I can, be the best person I know how to be. And if I can help somebody else out, I'll give it my best effort. And, you know, that's about it. That's about all I can do in this life. So, you know, I don't try to impose or inflict myself or my thoughts or ideas on anyone else. And that's about the best I can be, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
But meantime, we're in a system, right? And I agree with you because at the end of
Mhm.
the day, as long as what you do does not affect me,
Mhm.
what do I care what you do?
Yeah.
Within that, within that, um, at the end of the day, what does okay, the intensity level of
Mhm.
people
Well, sure.
is extreme,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, dude, do you not know?
Yeah.
And it's like,
But where does that come from? It comes from the ego.
yeah,
And I just don't care about your ego. I really don't care. I don't mean you personally.
mhm,
I mean the conglomerate out there, you know, the collective ego. I just don't care. The machine has not yet been invented that can measure my indifference. I just don't, I really honestly do not care. And whoever is in power has never been the source of my happiness or my sadness. I have been. I am. I'm the one that decides whether I'm a happy guy today or I'm not a happy guy today. And I mean, you know, it's not perfect. It's not a Coke commercial. If I wake up in a bad mood, I do my best to get out of it. But nobody around me is the cause for that except me. I'm the only one that can, and sometimes I can't control it, but I'm the only one who can decide if I'm going to be happy today or not. Because if I've made up my mind, I'm going to be in a pissy mood all day long. By God, it's real easy to do. So they have no control over that. And I don't let them have control over that. They're not that important to me.
right. But they do
So,
have
you know,
control over that at large.
they have control over certain things, they have control over certain aspects. But one thing they will never have control over is what's up here and what's in here. I'm in control of that and they can't
Right,
take it away from me.
right,
You can have my body, you can have every my possessions, but you can't have my soul and you can't have my thoughts.
right. But they can't see that may hold true for you
Hmm.
and for many, but
Hmm.
for I think many more, they have that control because they are swayed by what's on the news. This Corona thing, it has changed the way I interact outside, not because of the people interacting
Sure.
with me, but with me. I'm keeping my distance, and I think it's a smart
Sure.
thing to do. But people are freaking out,
Yeah.
and places like New York. So I guess why I'm saying this is that it's just an example now, and we should be cautious in this and that. But um, more people die, and this could lead in many ways. So I'm not trying to,
Sure.
but more people die with the regular flu per
Hmm.
year than
Hmm.
this situation, and yet
Right.
it's grinded the world to a halt.
It's new and it's scary. It's deadly and it spreads easily. That's the double whammy. You know, there have been diseases that have come here. There have been diseases that have spread the world. There have been other pandemics that were more deadly, but they were harder to catch. There have been pandemics that were easier to catch, but weren't deadly. This one's the double whammy. It does kill people and it's very easy to catch. That's why folks are so freaked out. The problem to me is not so much they're freaking out over it and being afraid of it. I mean, because I think that's natural. I think it's human to be afraid of something like that. Um, what my problem is with the reactions. It's they don't know what to do, but they're not looking for answers as to what to do. So they're reacting in the only way they know how, and that is to panic. And you know, I that doesn't help anyone. Now we're seeing less of that now. The episode we released earlier today, episode 85, was recorded on the 17th, St. Patrick's Day. And this was within still some of the earliest panicked reactions to what was starting to happen. Well, it's been another week and things have slowed down. Things have calmed down considerably. I'm not seeing the localized panic that we were seeing. You know, people were afraid to even look at another soul, and they were buying everything they could get because they didn't know if they'd be able to get it next week. Well, they're seeing now that they can get it next week. So a lot of that has slowed down. Some of it hasn't, because there were people who were legitimately caught short. And there are people that need to buy stuff. Just, you know, you run low on flour, you go buy a sack of flour. So that's a legitimate need. But you can't do that when somebody else has bought, you know, a whole case of bags of flour. So, but I'm seeing that starting to slow down, and folks are kind of calming down a little bit.
I hope that they pass a thing in the stores where you can't return excessive bags of toilet paper.
Well, I don't know what they're doing with return policies now, because when you figure you've taken that home, you've opened it up, you've played with it, we don't know what your kids have done with it. Do I really want that back? I don't know that I want you to bring that back. It's been in your house, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know what returns are going to be like. I don't think we have hit the peak. I don't think we have. I don't think that the infections are going to start going down from this point. I still think there's going to be more, but I'm seeing the panic, that first initial gut reaction to do something, anything, even if it's wrong, has kind of sort of passed, and people are being a little bit more deliberate and a little bit more judicious, putting a little bit more thought into what they're doing. And I'm glad to see that. Things are still not normal, and they won't be for a while. I don't know any more than anybody else, but if past history has been any kind of an indicator, maybe another 30 days. But I could be completely wrong there. It could be 60, 90, could be next year.
Well,
but who knows? I mean, but I'm seeing a lot of people saying we're all in this together, and in a lot of ways that's true. But we need to be more thoughtful for ourselves, for our family. And that's kind of a tough one too, because it's been ingrained in us that the way you show somebody you love them and you care is you go visit. So we're being taught and told now not to do that. This is not the time to go visit grandma. Call her on the phone. This is not the time to go to the nursing home for a visit. Don't do that. Give them a call. Send them a letter. Shoot a video. You know, something like that. Talk to one another through Google Hangouts. It still works. You can try it.
Yeah.
There are going to be more and more cases every day. And some of the rates of infection are getting worse. I think in New York, it's like the cases double or triple every day. But when you look at how people live in New York, they're all jam-packed together. The population density of New York City is tremendous. That stands to reason that things like that are going to happen. But I also don't believe in slapping fate in the face. And if there's and if there's something you can do to reduce that risk, do it.
I think that I'm going to make a call, and boy, I hope he's listening. I'm going to make a call that everyone in America, once this is said and done, purchase property near and around Lumberton, Mississippi.
Yeah, that's just what he wants, is more neighbors.
Yeah, I want you to comb the area for property, and I want you to purchase and build up a skyscraper skyline.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna leave that out there for one special person. Just I hope they received said commentary.
Yeah, we will see.
Or we can all go and purchase and acquire property over in Canada. Boy, I wish I knew the specific town. I know it's the lowest point of Canada where it actually feeds into. He had mentioned it's lower.
Oh, it's not far out of Detroit, right? In that area there, is that what you're?
Yeah, that is.
Oh, okay, yeah, there we go.
Oh, good. There we go.
There he is. He reacted.
Good.
This is called narrowcasting.
And by the way, well, let's just leave it at that. We'll separate that from the actual other bit because I don't want to associate that on the radio show.
Yeah,
I do want to mention that we're sponsored by Harneal Media, and that's Steve Nealon over at Harneal Media.
At least we are. At least we are for the moment.
Yeah. And so you can acquire a website through harnealmedia.com, and that's through Steve. Just ask him what the prices are and tell him what you need, and he'll work with you.
Everything from a complete website all the way up to just a web store. He'll help you with merchandising and do as much or as little as you want. If you're a hands-on type person, he's got you covered. If you're not a hands-on person, he's got you covered. He's a good guy. He knows what he's doing, and he'll work with you, willing to work with you. Steve Nealon at Harneal Media, HARNEAL media.com.
And we also have a website of our own, sponsored by Harneal Media. Could you imagine we go the rotation again and sponsored by Harneal Media?
Harneal Media. If you need a web, no, let's not do that.
We do have a website, and it's called Trampled Underfoot podcast.com, and you can catch our past episodes on that website. We work really hard to post every Tuesday, and you'll see a long list of awesome shows with a range of different topics. And you can check that out by pressing the Wayback button machine up at the top, the tab. So that's a pretty cool website to entertain, and while you're passing the time in this apocalyptic moment,
Self-quarantine.
While you're consume our long list of episodes. We also have a Facebook page, and it's called Trampled Underfoot Podcast, the Facebook page. And we also post on there videos and photos and things that we talk about here on the podcast over there. And if you have any questions or suggestions, like today, I'll just say Jim Dockrell, which we're suggesting everybody move over there as well. And he can give us the specific trajectory location so that we can populate the area. Because what we want to do is we want to get that forest and that pollen infected nature. We want to get rid of that, and we want to construct concrete all around you.
Yeah, pave it.
Pave it. Asphalt is the new natural substance, and which actually it kind of in a way is. He did send a link, but I will mention Dockrell. You could also post it on our Trampled. I didn't get it in time to process it, but I am going to watch it, and then we'll discuss.
We'll go from there.
Yeah. So that's it. We're done.
Oh no, we're not. Because we haven't even mentioned our YouTube channel to the folks listening on the podcast. Head on over to the YouTube and look up Trampled Underfoot Podcast on YouTube. We record these episodes every Tuesday evening at 9:30 Eastern Time, 6:30 Pacific. You're welcome, Pacific or Pacific, for those of you who can speak. You're welcome to come along, join us, come over here and hoot and holler in the chat with all of our friends over here. Katie, Billy, Roger, Steve, Mervin, and Jim Dockrell, of course. And that cute one named Linda over there. And Frankie CNC, not so cute, but not everybody can be. Al from Odessa's Woodworking and Maker Shop. All right. So, want to say thank you to everybody out there. Thanks for coming over and joining us. So, back to you, my friend.
Yeah, so we'll catch you guys next time, and we'll see where we're sitting next time. And I just want to say that, not to revisit it, I wasn't suggesting sort of like a fatal, unoptimistic view of the world. I was just making an observation, but I do have positivity. I just wanted to add that little thing at the end because we do have to live it. You know what I'm saying? So there are things that excite us and this and that, but when it comes to intensity, we don't want to. I guess I am opening up the chapter again. We'll leave it at that. Check out our past episodes. We'll talk next time. Peace.
Have a good one, y'all.